Have you ever wondered how one wrong decision can completely alter the course of a life? The story I'm about to tell you begins with what seemed like an ordinary young love, but it unfolds with such speed and drama, it's impossible to look away. Today, you'll hear a tale of betrayal, loss, and an unexpected reunion, years later, that changes everything. Ilara and Liam met as teenagers. She was vibrant, a dreamer, loved attention and grand gestures. He was a quiet guy from a working-class family, without wealth or connections, but ready to do anything for her. Every whim of hers became a mission he rushed to fulfill. Flowers from a nearby field, sweets bought with his last money, walks until dawn. These were all his ways of saying, "I'm here for you." Liam believed their feelings were genuine, that they had a future together. He planned to finish his studies, get a job, and provide for Ilara. She accepted his care with a smile, but deep down she pictured herself in a different life, brighter, wealthier, full of sparkle, and this difference in their dreams became the first crack in their destiny. A perfect example was his endless trips to the neighbouring town where Ilara had gone to study. Every Saturday he'd hitch a ride, arrive to spend a few hours with her, and return home by nightfall, tired but happy. He believed he was doing everything right, that he was inching closer to their shared dream. But he didn't know the most important thing. Ilara was already starting to look for a completely different world. Julian's appearance changed everything. He was Liam's complete opposite. Self-assured, brash, with a booming laugh and an expensive car. Ilara was as if blinded by his shine. She was drawn to this other life, where she wouldn't have to count pennies or wait for a ride, where everything seemed easy and carefree. Julian saw a challenge in her. He liked that Ilara didn't throw herself at him like other girls. He persistently pursued her attention, showered her with compliments, and invited her to parties. At first she pushed him away, blushed, and tried to keep her distance. But the more she resisted, the more insistently he surrounded her with his attention. Eventually, Ilara gave in. She felt, for the first time, what it was like to be with someone accustomed to winning and dominating. And it was at this moment that the invisible chasm between her and Liam began to rapidly widen. That very Saturday was a prime example. While Liam, faithful and devoted, waited for her at her home with a bouquet of wild daisies and a basket of strawberries, Ilara was laughing at Julian's table. The night she spent with him became her point of no return, and Liam still believed she belonged only to him. When Ilara realised she was pregnant, her world turned upside down. For her, it was a shock. For Julian, a problem. He wasn't ready to be a father, but even less ready to ruin his family's reputation. His father held a high position, and a scandal could cost too much. So, Julian proposed the only solution: marriage. Ilara dreamed they would manage together, that everything would change for the better. But just a few weeks after the wedding, it became clear. Julian hadn't married for love. He treated her coldly, avoided conversations, and disappeared at night. His life remained unchanged. Noisy parties, gatherings, other women. When Ilara tried to talk to him, he simply brushed her off. "I did everything I could for you. I married you so you wouldn't be shamed. Now deal with it yourself." These words cut her to the heart. She felt increasingly abandoned and alone, and the most painful blow was a scene she would never forget. Returning home earlier than usual, Ilara found Julian in their own bed with another woman. Her scream, despair, and sudden pain in her abdomen marked the beginning of long months of suffering. And then, for the first time, she truly regretted her choice. The wedding day should have been her celebration, but for Liam, it became a farewell. He arrived quietly in the shadows of the guests, hunched, as if aged beyond his years. Ilara noticed him instantly. Her heart constricted, her breath caught. Why was he there? To torment her with his gaze, to remind her whom she had betrayed? But Liam didn't approach her. Instead, he walked over to the musicians, said something briefly, and took the microphone. The chatter in the hall instantly died down, and suddenly his voice rang out, deep, clear, a voice she had never known he possessed. He wasn't just singing a song, he was bearing his soul. Every line sounded like a confession, a cry of both pain and love. In that moment, the guests stopped laughing. Even Julian fell silent. Everyone listened, captivated by this simple guy whom no one had ever taken seriously. Ilara watched him and understood. This wasn't just music. This was his final conversation with her. And it was then that the realization struck her. She had lost the only person who had truly loved her. When the song ended, Liam lowered the microphone and left, without waiting for applause. He had said everything he wanted to, and she was left with her new husband and an emptiness in her heart that nothing could now fill. After the wedding, Ilara's life became a series of trials. Her pregnancy was difficult, and Julian not only offered no help, but disappeared from home more and more often. Her complaints, her tears, her attempts to regain his attention irritated him. He spoke coldly as if to a stranger. "I did what I had to do. Live your life as you see fit now." Every time he walked out the door, it left an emptiness in Ilara's soul. But one day she came home early and saw something that utterly shattered her. Their apartment was in disarray. Men's and women's clothes lay scattered on the floor, and in her bed Julian was embracing another woman. This image was seared into her memory forever. In shock, Ilara screamed and felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. She collapsed to the floor, while the two in the room panicked. She was rushed to the hospital, where she spent long days, turned to the wall, wanting to see no one. Julian came only once, not with flowers, not with apologies. In his hands were divorce papers. "Sign them. It will be easier for both of us," he said dryly. Ilara signed the papers and returned to her hometown. Ahead of her lay only memories, guilt, and a desire to find Liam, to ask for his forgiveness just once. But it was there that a terrible piece of news awaited her. Back in her small town, Ilara lived with the hope of meeting Liam. She dreamed of apologizing, explaining that she had already been punished by fate and was ready to beg for forgiveness. But reality proved cruel. When she arrived at his house, Liam's mother opened the door. There was so much pain and hatred in her eyes that Ilara could barely meet her gaze. The woman said sharply, "You're to blame for everything. If it weren't for you, my son would still be alive." Those words cut deeper than a knife. Ilara ran out into the street, not knowing where to go. A neighbour stopped her there. Hearing her question about Liam, the woman shook her head and uttered the terrible news. "He's gone. He died. A car hit him on your wedding day." Ilara couldn't withstand the blow. Her world reeled, her legs gave way, and she lost consciousness. In her memory, one thought was forever etched. On the very day she said, "I do," to another, Liam departed forever. Years passed. She finished college and became a teacher. She worked with children with a warmth and care that had been so lacking in her own life. But with adults, she was closed off, pushing away any men and declining friendships. Behind her back, colleagues called her the nun. Only with children did she truly come alive, especially when a boy named Leo joined her class. Quiet, thin, clearly from a poor family, and it was he who became the key to a new chapter in her destiny. Leo immediately stood out among the other students. Short, thin, dressed in worn clothes, he seemed invisible to his peers. But it was this that touched Ilara's heart. She took him under her unofficial wing, helping with homework, protecting him from teasing, trying to give him a sense of warmth that she felt the boy lacked at home. From his personal file, she learned, no mother, he lived with his father. Always clean and tidy, but poverty showed in every detail. Old shoes, a mended shirt, just enough change for a school snack. Ilara found herself thinking more and more often. She wanted to see this father, to understand how Leo lived, and if she could help in any way. His father never came to school meetings. To her questions, the boy answered evasively, "He's sick." This only heightened her concern. One Friday after school, she decided to go home with Leo. The road led to an old apartment building near the hospital. The boy explained that his dad often went there for injections. When they entered the apartment, Ilara heard the squeak of wheels and saw a man in a wheelchair. She looked up, and the world stood still. Before her was Liam, the very man she had believed to be dead. Ilara's heart couldn't take it. She fell to her knees, pressed herself against his legs and burst into tears, repeating, "You're alive! Alive!" And Leo, understanding nothing, looked from her to his father and simply stayed silent. They spent the evening in the kitchen, engaged in a long conversation. Liam recounted everything that had happened after the accident. A car had indeed hit him that day, but he survived. Several months in a coma, agonizing treatment, endless surgeries. The person behind the wheel was wealthy and paid for his recovery, otherwise there would have been no chance. But he couldn't regain his full health. He remained confined to a wheelchair. It turned out that Leo had come into his life almost by chance. A young nurse, believing Liam was wealthy, had cared for him while he recovered. When she became pregnant, it turned out he had neither money nor property. The woman didn't want to raise the child and left, abandoning the baby to his father. Since then, Liam had raised his son alone, moved to cheap housing near the hospital, and lived for Leo. Ilara listened to him, clutching her hands, unable to hold back her tears. She confessed that all those years she had believed him dead. His relatives had told her so. "They blamed you for my misfortune," Liam said calmly. "Don't hold it against them." She took his hand and whispered, "I'm to blame, but if you allow me, I'll make everything right. I'll be by your side." There was so much pain and determination in her voice that Liam simply nodded and pressed her palm to his lips. From that evening, a new story began. Ilara seemed to come alive. She laughed, made plans, dreamed again. She fought for Liam's treatment, travelled to specialists, opened an account in his name, and a few years later they walked side by side, he limping slightly, Leo, a cheerful teenager, and Ilara with a stroller, where their little daughter slept. The most unexpected twist was that Liam had been alive all this time. Fate had cruelly separated them, but granted them a second chance. Ilara embraced the care of Liam and Leo. Together, they learned to be a family once more. 3 years later, they walked side by side, Liam with a slight limp, holding his son's hand. Beside them, Ilara, pushing a stroller with their baby daughter sleeping peacefully inside. This is not a fairy tale. It's a story that even in the darkest circumstances, there's a chance for light. The important thing is not to miss it. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your comments. It means a lot to us. What do you think? Can betrayal truly be forgiven? And can one start completely anew?